Hello and well met. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be checking out some more Chat GPT tools to help create content for homebrew stuff for personal use. So if you are someone who likes Chat GPT and AI tools, this would be for you. If you're someone who does not like this, just remember that this is being used for personal use. I'm not making any content for sale or commercial use. And on top of that, the things are changing and evolving so much that it's really hard to tell what's what and who's copywriting and all that good stuff. So nonetheless, I wanted to get that disclaimer out of the way. The next disclaimer is that I simply do these shows just for fun. I do not officially represent SmiteWorks or the Fantasy Grounds platform. However, I am an enthusiastic fan and I do like to use the platform to run games and to create content, those sort of things. The next thing I wanted to mention was the Chat GPT version I'm using is version 4.0, the turbo mode. It is November 16th, 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, things might have changed or have varied since then. But I'm going to show you some tips and some use cases and those sort of things. I have my show notes here. So essentially, you need to have OpenAI paid version. So there is an alternative way to kind of practice, and I would use the new Bing tool. If you have Windows 11, there's a Copilot preview that's being installed as we speak. What it does is it sends a little sidebar, and then you get to essentially try Chat GPT sort of through Bing. So you can create a lot of the images and stuff for free. You don't have to have a paid account using that one. I don't know how it does with content as far as making formatted tables and that sort of thing, but it does provide you with a way to practice with the tool before you actually purchase anything or get too deep into it. So you can use the Windows Copilot is what they call it, and it's essentially using Chat GPT. I don't know which version, but they're in cahoots with them. Microsoft and OpenAI are working together. So the next thing is mainly using this tool to create stories, tables, NPCs, images, and such for your personal use for your homebrew. I'm told it's all. Oh, okay, cool. I get it next week at work. Oh, that's nice. Cool. Right on. Thanks for the clarification. So the it does require a paid version if you're going to use the OpenAI Chat GPT. So if you are someone who doesn't have it yet, or you don't intend to, you won't have some of these features. So I just want to let you know that. But one of the things I was talk about is that it kind of helps with inspiration, saves a ton of time, like typing and researching, and then it also helps with writer's block. So if you're kind of stuck, you don't know what to make next, it can kind of help inspire that. It does take some practice and a little experimentation. And now they've introduced these custom mini GPTs so that you can kind of create your own themed ones for certain situations. So I'll show you that shortly. I've made a few that kind of help narrow down the focus. Also, you got to kind of keep up with the changes. This technology is changing like weekly, it seems. So there's a lot to take in. So when you first start, just practice, watch some YouTube videos, that sort of thing, and kind of get familiar with the way it works. Like I said, the Windows integration's kind of already here. The Copilot beta, the free version, is out right now. So learning prompt engineering is not as specific using DALL-E 3 in Chat GPT 4. So if you understand how to create prompts and how to word them, that's really one of the key things here with these kinds of tools. And it's kind of knowing what they accept and what they don't accept. And they've changed the model so often because they have legal issues. They've got memory issues. There's all kinds of things that they got to work with in order to make it so that it will function properly with human input. And a lot of this is all beta. This is all kind of new. So we're kind of using it as we go. It's a wild west right now. As far as ethics, use cases, it's just not for everyone. I certainly haven't decided if I want to use it for any product. You can use it without getting any copyright infringement or getting in trouble. However, you got to be careful with how you word your things and also what you're trying to achieve with it. And there's a lot of pushback in the role playing community. So if you're going to sell this stuff commercially, make sure that you disclose that you used AI, and then you can get citations out of the AI tool, and it even includes sources. So that's kind of helpful if you're going to use this sort of thing to create content. Let's say you're going to do a Kickstarter and you want to use the Chat GPT to help you do that. Just make sure you say that up front. That way, later on, someone has discovered that you kind of cheated, went cut corners, and you didn't hire artists and you didn't spend a year waiting for the artwork. But nonetheless, just got to be careful with that. For output and content focus, you can sort of get consistency, and we'll talk about that a little bit, because that's one of the things that people complain about is you can hardly ever create the same thing over. So there is kind of a way to do it. I will discuss a little bit on Fantasy Grounds use cases. I've done several shows where I've created text and I've been able to import it into Fantasy Grounds, and most of that was D&D stuff, but you can do it with Pathfinder, Cyberpunk, I mean, all kinds of stuff. So it just kind of depends on what your focus is, what your interests are, and what your needs are. For resources, the biggest one I would have to say is YouTube and the Discord for the related AI tools. So if you join the OpenAI, join their Discord and attend some of their prompt engineering classes, and read the forums that they put up, and all the changes. That's where you get your news. I start there, and then I look at YouTube for others such as myself that are kind of playing around with it. I've found better ways to do it. Quite often they'll provide prompts and tips and all kinds of stuff, and use cases and examples. So it's a wild world out there as far as resources go. And then, of course, I will mention using the built-in import tools for Fantasy Grounds for NPCs, tables, races, etc. So I've kind of already done that. So I'm going to focus more today on the Chat GPT side of things, and then go into Fantasy Grounds a little bit at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to go to the OpenAI account that I have. This is a paid account. And over on your left, you'll notice these different GPTs. And then over here on the right is when I click on Explore. These are all the Chat GPTs that I've either used or that I've created for myself. So it kind of depends on how you're using the AI tool. But essentially, I've made several different smaller Chat GPTs to create content. So I have one for Pathfinder. I have one for just kind of generic prompts for art. I have a fantasy art crafter, which is more specific to like D&D, this or fantasy type stuff. The prompt artist is more of a general thing. FG chat log. So if you are using Fantasy Grounds and you notice in your campaign folder, you have a chat log that forms, if you have it on, that will collect all the notes, all the stuff in the chat. You can actually put that into Chat GPT and ask for a summary, and it will break it down and give you stats and those sort of things. So you can kind of make like a play-by-play or a recap, or kind of a fun thing to do if you want, or just get some summaries for like how much damage was put out, who was the most, all that sort of stuff. So you can use this tool as a way to pull in stats from your chat log HTML file, and you're able to upload that stuff now into Chat GPT. So you can upload photos, PDFs, all kinds of stuff, and it will, if it's not copyright protected, like doesn't have file protection and all that stuff on there, it'll probably be able to read it. But I know it works on the HTML log. So here's the 5e effects builder. So what I did is I went in and I made it a specific effects builder for 5e. And what I did is I took this particular Chat GPT, I gave it some instructions. So this is going to be the example. So this is the effects builder, and up here on the top left is the title and the settings. So if I go to Edit GPT, and then I go into Configure, this is where you set this up. So this is the title, this is the description, And then here are the instructions on what I want it to do, or gives you an idea of what it's for. And then there is a knowledge area. So if you had code interpreter selected here on the capabilities, it has web browsing, image generation, code interpreter. So I leave those on. And if you don't have code interpreter, you can't upload anything. But what I've done is I've uploaded the SRD, I've uploaded the NPC coding format, weapons, powers, and actions for essentially for the D&D 5e rule set. And then I actually took and downloaded the whole portion of the Atlassian guide that pertains to the effects. And I put it in PDF format, which you can just download it straight from the Atlassian. And so I fed it all these different documents. And then I tell it, to first refer to my knowledge, which is this content that I've uploaded, before it branches out. So essentially there's a conversation starters that you can also place here, kind of like defaults. So you can just click on them on the right here. So generate an effects for D&D's player action tab. You can generate an effect for a D&D 5e NPC, or create an effect as a note with no actual syntax requirements. So this is a way that you can kind of customize this tool to do things for you. So now whenever you need a code or some sort of if it's something related to the game and you need it really quick, this might be a way to make that happen. So if you make any changes to this, or you update it all, you want to hit update to save it. You have options where you can only publish it to yourself. You can provide people with a link, or you can make it public. I haven't made anything public because I don't think I have anything really good enough that is good enough for a large array of people. So that I kind of left it as, if I want to share the link with someone, I can do that. So go ahead and confirm. That saves it. So what I'm going to do is give it a command. So I'm going to get out of this update area just so you can see, and then I'm going to go to the effects builder. So create an effect for a D&D 5e player action tab. So just for an example, even though this is very common, you could probably find it in the forums. I'll say create an effect for a rogue PC. I want you to make the sneak attack syntax effects automation. So it's not really coding per se, it's just keywords. So I already fed it most of the stuff that's out there. So it doesn't have every little single edge case. And also it may be able to help you with homebrew classes and races and that sort of thing. So if you've created something and you've realized that there's something missing, or you want it to create an effect, I think it has enough intelligence, or enough reasoning and logic where it can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and see what it comes up with. So I went ahead and said build this effect, and it's essentially it's looking through my instruction sets. One mistake that I made, I think, is that I don't want it to, basically I don't want it to go through a big, huge PDF. So that's a problem. So don't do a huge PDF, because that takes it a while to course through. So when I added the D&D SRD, it basically made it a little too big. So it has to course through all that information. So when you give it PDFs and such, don't give it a Bible. Give it a couple small ones, a more focused type thing. I gave it the SRD because I was using it for creating adventures, and I wanted to avoid a lot of that copyright stuff, so I used it for that too. So that's the only reason I uploaded the SRD. In other words, I don't really need it. So here it made this different ways. So let's see, how did it work? It even tells you what it did. So the part of the effect that adds the extra damage equals to the rogue's level, as the sneak attack damage will scale with the rogue. So this is really cool. It actually breaks it down and explains it. This is what I really like about it. It doesn't just give you the answer. it actually gives you the logic and why it works. And that's really cool. And I don't know if it's accurate 100%, but so far it looks right. So the melee, range indicates the extra damage applies to both melee and ranged attacks. I don't know if you need that. And then if type custom. So if the target statement checks for a custom condition called sneak attack, you would apply this condition to targets when they meet the criteria for a sneak attack. So I guess that's taking it one step further. Instead of having a blanket, if you have a certain target out of a group, maybe that would be good for that. The effect is to be applied to the rogue character on the combat tracker. The DM or player must manually apply the sneak attack condition to the target when appropriate, and this could be due to the target being engaged with another enemy or the rogue having advantage on the attack roll. So it has a considerations. The effect assumes manual intervention to determine if the conditions for a sneak attack are met. Fantasy Grounds cannot automatically detect such conditions. Make sure to update the rogue and the damage part as the rogue levels up to match increasing damage of sneak attack. When you go in to set it up, you go to the Actions tab, create a new effect, input the syntax as described, and name the effect Sneak Attack. So this will automate the additional damage roll. So this is really cool. This gives you a breakdown of how it actually works, not just the answer. Some people don't care, but I think it's really good. It teaches you how to use it too. That's really what I prefer. And that's really cool. So this is a good use case for it. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but it'll get you close. So this is a really good use for this particular Chat GPT. So this one, I made it an effects builder, and that's all I'm going to do with it. I'm not going to build anything else. And the reason for that is it'll get kind of confused. So if you create too much content in one conversation, and if you use this from before, it gets lost. They have improved the amount of tokens or the amount of data it can handle. They said recently in the developer update that it can handle about a 300-page PDF if you pushed it that far. I don't recommend it. Like I said, the smaller the better. You do it in bite sizes, you get a lot better output. If you give it too much crap, it really confuses it. So that is just an example of what these custom Chat GPTs can be used for. So I have effects one. I have this one for NPC stat blocks. I've already went through that before in other shows. So if you go back through our library, I've done things where I've taken the NPC stat blocks. I can generate them and then input them into Fantasy Grounds. Same thing with rollable tables. We've done that too. But I'm going to go back to creating this fantasy art. So this is my fantasy art crafter. That's just the name of it. It's not, lack of a better title. And it makes this little handy dandy little icon or token for it. So in case you want to share it to the public, I'm going to go to the Edit GPT and then go to Configure. And I want to show you kind of the steps that I went through. So I'm going to create colorful static. I shouldn't even say static. I'm going to say fantasy and RPG images instead of art. So I've even changed the description a little bit here. No animations or no animations. I want to say no anime because it wants to do anime all the time. I don't know why it does that. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it always wants to make like Japanese animation stuff. I don't care for it. Okay, so what I told it is, or what I requested, is that it will use my custom instructions when possible. So I want it to refer to my instructions straight away so that it doesn't try to wander and do its own thing, unless it's the last resort. When outputting DALL-E 3 images, always display the gen ID. So this is where the consistency can come in. So the gen ID is the generated identification number, so that if you want to refer back to it and make changes to an existing image, you can refer to that gen ID. It's kind of like asking it to go back to the last image or to recreate it with using the last known image, but it's actually a little better, a little bit more superior, and it's changed. So that this whole thing has evolved quite a bit. So the other tricks where you used it in Mid-Journey and that sort of thing. Well, this is a little different than Mid-Journey. You can get away with using just regular language. You don't have to use the robotic, use this camera with this lighting and this pose and all. I mean, you could put that stuff in there and get a pretty good output, but it's not required. So DALL-E 3 does a good job with just plain English, and you don't necessarily have to put in a bunch of technical stuff. However, I found that if you do put in a few technical things, you get better output, or at least you get closer to what you're used to. The third thing is for hybrid and combined images. So if you have like a centaur or a, anthropomorphic is another way that I put in. So I'll put, you can request anthropomorphize, so that works really good. If you have like a humanoid, like a tabaxi or a kobold or something like that, anthropomorphized. I probably got it wrong. It's too big of a word for me right now. Yeah, it said no. Okay, here we go. So you're going to use or request anthropomorphized, blend, mix, combine, merge, meld, fuse, hybridize, synergize, incorporate, and fuse. So these are just things those are keywords that kind of tell it that you're looking to merge two images. And then you also add in terms like the style, the aesthetics, the elements, design. Those are the sort of things that you're going to use in the prompt, or you want it to look at before you merge the images together. So if you took two gen IDs, you can actually say, hey, take those two images and combine them. And then you kind of give it a little bit more guidance and just say combine it. Because if you don't tell it a little bit more specifically, it's going to do some random combo, which isn't always a bad thing. You might want it to experiment. Number 4, I told it, this basically the kind of output I'm looking for is kind of an Dungeons and Dragons type artwork, epic and detailed. Just fantasy art crafter is tailored to work with colored or work for colored images, work towards that. We want vivid colors, specializing styles like fantasy oil paintings, 3D rendered images, and fantasy RPG book art. Strictly avoids animations and black and white. I won't say, it's supposed to say anime, so that might be one of the problems I was having. And black and white sketches. If I want a sketch, I'll tell it that. I don't want it to just give it to me. And if I want anime, I'll tell it that. The Chat GPT maintains a casual yet creatively professional demeanor, encouraging user input for custom designs while ensuring clarity in communication. It seeks user input diligently to capture the essence of their vision, making it an ideal companion for an RPG or sci-fi art enthusiast. When requesting to blend, I gotta take that out. That's a repetitive thing. So I gave it some stuff here. I gave it some some kind, and then also you got to do the orientation. I didn't put that in there because it changes depending on what I want. So you can do landscape, you can do portrait, or you can do square. So you either do 9 by 16 or 16 by 9. And if you say a tall portrait, whatever, you normally get the vertical photo. If you say landscape 16:9, you'll normally get the horizontal. And if you say square 1:1 ratio, then you'll get the square. So you got to put that at the end so it kind of knows the orientation. Sometimes it just does what it wants. And part of that is your prompt. So if you say something like, if let's say you just want the picture of the face, right? So if you're going to ask to generate the picture or the photo of the face, you only want to request the stuff that's going to be visible in the face. So don't give it a whole bunch of background detail. Just say you want a gloomy background or a white background or black or whatever, or maybe a haunted house. But don't get any more than that, because what it will do is it'll try to pull in that part of the image. It'll blow the image out. It'll zoom out so it can capture what you're asking it. And when you're doing that, you're losing the focus of what you're after. So if you want someone's face, don't give it all that other stuff. Just maybe the color of what type of armor he's wearing, because that'll be up at his shoulder. Maybe a color of his cloak, and then give the details of the hair and the face. You know, don't give it a, oh, he's carrying a sword, but you're not going to see the sword unless it's strapped to his back, of course. Then you have to say that. But this is the sort of mistakes that we make when we're just kind of learning how to use the tool. And in the same token, if you want to create the background and stuff, you got to make sure you talk about it. And more than likely, you're going to want to either have portrait or landscape, because if you don't, and you prompt it that way, it's going to give you some weird results, and it may not give you quite what you're looking for. Occasionally, it'll surprise you, but usually it kind of screws it up. So my conversation starters here is to create a colorful fantasy character with my provided instructions and details. So that's just a default. Design an RPG style scene like this. I don't need to say like this, so I can get rid of that. Generate a detailed oil painting of a fantasy landscape. Illustrate a vibrant 3D style character based, I'll just say, I don't need the based on. See, you can fine tune these things to make them work for you. Create a detailed fantasy item like armor, a weapon, magic item, or tool. So those are just some of the defaults. You don't have to use those. They're just kind of conversation starters. This would be good for if you're always doing the same thing over and over, or if you're sharing this to the public and you kind of want to showcase this type of GPT and you want them to know what it's for, you give them a few examples of the types of questions or content that you're after. And then make sure you have these capabilities enabled. And if you want to upload a custom instruction set that's very detailed, like programming stuff and that, you can by uploading a PDF that has that information. This also allows for you to take photos like on your phone or a camera, and it'll take the photo and analyze it, and based on your input, like what you want from it, it will give you some output. Like the other day I had a shelf that didn't come with any instructions, and I wanted to test to see if it would actually give me some insight, some help. So it actually did. It said, okay, you're going to be able to put it in this area. You need wall anchors. You got to drill the pilot holes. You know, it was pretty thorough and pretty impressive. So it can help you with stuff like that. Like maybe you take a picture of your dice or something. I don't know. But anyway, so that's kind of more real world help. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and hit update because I made some changes. I made some little revisions here. And we're going to go ahead and generate an image. And if anyone's listening now live, if you want something specific to a fantasy character or role-playing game or Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or something, go ahead and make that request and give me a little prompt, and I'll use that. So let me go to the Fantasy Art Crafter. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you're starting out. So if anyone here that's listening, if you guys want a specific creature or a character or anything like that, let me know, and I'll put that in the tool here and see what it gives us. And then after I'm done, I'll post it in our Discord if you want to use it later. And we can use this content. It's not copyright, so you can use it wherever you want. Just remember that the laws, though, if you do a lot of artwork, you can't copyright the art. So that's the one bad thing about using AI for your projects. If you're going to sell it, is you can't copyright the artwork yet. There's not a real good way to do it. There's been a lot of debate and fighting going on in court over this stuff, so we'll see what happens. So if anyone has any specific character type or a monster or kind of like a real basic scene or anything, let me know, and I'll start it going. But I was going to do a necromancer because I've been kind of on a necromancer kick lately, and I thought that I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but I mean, I've had some pretty good results. So maybe I'll do that. So if no one has any requests, I'll go ahead and make a necromancer NPC, a female one. So what I'm going to do is say create a, I'll say mysterious and evil female necromancer. Period. Okay. I gotta get the spelling right. Spelling does help. Okay, so that's just going to set up kind of your parameters there. And then I'm going to say, kind of give it some looks. So I'll say she is wearing dark gray and black robes. I'll say old. She's wearing old. I don't want them to look brand new. And black robes with strange arcane motifs, I'll say. And that might add a little bit of decor on the edges. So let me see. She's wearing old dark gray and black robes with strange arcane motifs on the trim. So if there's any trim or anything, okay, on the trim. Okay, now the next thing is I wanted to add her look. So that's her clothing. So that would be the third thing. I need to go back to her look. So she has a bald head with weird, well, let's just say tattoos. I'll say arcane tattoos. Arcane magical tattoos. And she has a maniacal smile on her face. Her skin is pale and she has sunken eye sockets, something like that. I don't want her to look too pretty, so we're gonna ugly her up a little bit. Okay, so we told it what we to start. We asked kind of like some general appearance things, and then we told it or asked it what it's going to be wearing. And now I'm going to say start doing the background stuff. So I'll say there are some evil and horrific, and these help because evil and horrific will change some of the way that it forms these background images. There are two. I won't say some. I'll say two. It's better to be specific instead of some. You can say duo or quad or a trio or duet, but you don't want to say some or a little because it's not really going to know what that is. So it's better to specify. So there are two evil and horrific zombies in the background, comma, inside of an ancient dungeon complex made of stone and with dim and gloomy lighting. So now we're telling it the type of light. So that's kind of left over from Midjourney. You kind of had to do more of that. In this case, I could just say, make me a mysterious, an evil female necromancer and leave it at that. But it's not going to necessarily give you what you want. If you want something more specific, like I'm doing now, you got to give it more information. You don't want to give it a huge story, but in DALL-E 3, you can kind of get away with that more. With Midjourney, you kind of were limited as to how many tokens you can give it. It's got a little bit more flexibility, and it can handle Common English more. You don't have to put as many specs in here. And now that I've given it that, what I'm going to say is now I'm going to give it some parameters. So I want it to look kind of like a video game. So I'm going to go 3D animation. And these are words left over from Midjourney. So 3D animation, what was the other thing? Oh, Octane render. So using the Octane software, the 3D software. I'll say style. So I don't want it to do a 3D animation because it'll tell you I can't do that. But if you just say you want it to render in that style, that's kind of what you're doing here. And then I'm going to say expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons character artwork. So this is just to give you an example of, the type of thing you might put in. That's a little bit much. This might be a little over the top, but it's going to get me closer to where I want to go. And then I want to say something like, I want this to be more of a portrait. So I want to see more of her body, not just the head or whatever in the background. So I'm going to try to give it the dimensions. So I'm going to say 9 by 16, or you can just say portrait, but sometimes it won't give me what I want. So I'll say 9/16 portrait aspect ratio. So this is kind of a habit and a carryover from using Midjourney and other AI tools. But essentially, this prompt is what I'm going to use. So I'll copy and paste this into the chat. So if you are watching, that's the prompt that I used. I don't know if it didn't give me everything, but it gave us most of it. It cut it off because there's a limit on how much I can put in the chat. But that's basically the chat, the wording. You can take something like that and rearrange it and do whatever you want with it. But the main thing I believe I'm gonna do this part is probably the more important part of this. If you want a video game like look, let's see. So this part, the second part I've given you is probably the more important part. The rest of this is more of a artistic part. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit send message, and we'll see what it gives us. Hopefully it doesn't crash. It's been crashing occasionally because there's a lot of people doing this right now. So they're running out of server space or whatever generates the images, probably GPUs. And hopefully we get something close. I've had some really good results before. So I mean, it's just incredible. It's just some of the things you can do. While we're waiting, just let you know that it's taken me a few months to get to this point. So it's not something I did overnight. It's not too bad. I mean, that's a really good looking image. So I could use that. The only thing I don't like is it's kind of off-centered. And it didn't give me my gen ID. So what I'm going to do is, and if I want to, I can download this now. But I'm going to say, please give me the gen underscore ID for the image above. So I want the image ID number in case I want to go back and reuse this. So let's see if it does. Okay, so there's the string, or in other words, this is your, there's another term for this, but it's essentially similar to that. I can't remember what they call it, string or thread. I don't remember. It's from Midjourney. I forget the name of it, but basically that's what that is. So I'll say from the image ID above, or I can just say, tell it the actual number. And since it's above, since I haven't done that much work, I can say above, but eventually I'm going to have to say what exact one I'm talking about, because above could be 3 conversations back. From the image above, please recreate, but center the character and change the... See, I think what happened is it's trying to include, like I said, because I told it to put these zombies in the background, now it's screwing up my image. So that's kind of what you got to watch out for. So I probably should have said landscape, because it's going to accommodate more of that image. But what I'm going to do is say, from the image above, please recreate, but center the character and change the aspect ratio to a landscape 16 by 9 view. See if that helps. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why it doesn't sometimes. And it's weird. Sometimes it'll do it, and other times it won't. Okay. So basically, I just kind of said, I don't really like that. And I kind of painted myself in a corner here because I told it to make this. Ideally, you could just have her made with a black background and then make this stuff in the background and kind of layer it together. You don't have to put it all in one image. So if you have like Adobe or some kind of image editing, you can just take this image out and then combine it with this background image and then kind of get more flexibility instead of relying on the AI tool to do everything. Yeah, see, that's much better. It's centered now because now I can show the NPCs or the undead in the background, and I have this NPC here. So that turned out really well. So as you can see, this kind of messed it up because it's trying to show these. And I asked it to show those, but I didn't think it was going to offset it that much. It would have been a little bit less offset. I would have left it alone. This is a better picture, but now I don't have the full body. So this is kind of where Midjourney was better because you can expand on the photo. You can actually zoom and zoom out, and you can pan left and pan right. So that's something I hope they come up with for DALL-E 3 eventually. But this looks pretty darn good. I mean, yes, it's a little video game-like, but this is pretty close to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to take that same prompt, but I'm going to switch the orientation, and now I'm going to change it to more of an oil painting. Something a little bit more traditional and less video game-like. So I'll create this thing. I'm going to use pretty much everything the same except for this part. I'm going to say detailed fantasy oil or digital oil painting, because I don't want it to look exactly like a painting. Digital oil painting. Expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons character artwork, and I'm going to say 16 by 9. Landscape. So this is kind of what you want. Let's see. So once you start understanding the behavior of your tool, in this case it's Chat GPT, you start knowing what to avoid and that sort of thing. It just takes some time, experimentation, some effort. You got to put your time in. And then, of course, you have to have the paid version in this case for this. But if you're going to use Bing, like I said, there's a new Copilot out that's being installed on a bunch of Windows 11 computers. You want to try it out without paying for it. You could try it. I don't know how well it is or how it works, but I'm sure it can give you some decent results. So now that I have this, I'm going to make the same character, but I'm going to create it in oil painting. And one thing I want to make sure is that I include this string here. So this is the gen ID. I'm going to say using the gen underscore ID blah blah blah, please create. And that's kind of going to help keep it looking similar. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be closer. So that's how you kind of control your characters. So if you want more consistency, you have it tell you the gen ID. And if you need to, you can make a spreadsheet that basically has all your gen IDs, and then you just give it a brief description so you remember what it went to. So if you need to go back later and recreate the same character, you'll be a lot closer than starting all over. So yeah, so this is more closer to what you would find in a role-playing game book. And I actually like this one better than this one. This one looks very video game, kind of 3D animation, which isn't bad. And this, in certain situations, this might be cool, like for a poster or maybe social media. But this one here, I would think that would be a little bit closer to what you would find in a role-playing game book. The edges are a little bit, they're not as detailed, a little bit blurry. Some of the stuff I don't like here in the back. I mean, this looks okay. The eyes look a little weird. this looks really good, this character back here, but these background images, this really stuff in the far back look very distorted. I realize that you're not going to see a lot of that, but I'd almost prefer that it was not as detailed in the background. So if it's going to look shitty, blur it, please. I wish I could say that. If the background looks shitty, just blur it. But I could ask it to refine it. I don't know. Let me see what it does. So I'm going to go with I'll say recreate the image ID, and then I'll do the number again. Recreate image ID, and then do this underscore here. But make the background more clear and less distortion, I'll say, and deformities, because there's a lot. The further you get away from the topic, the more deformities. So if you make an image that has multiple characters, got to be careful, because it's going to focus on the front 2 or 3, and the rest of them are going to look like shit. So you might have to create one character at a time and combine them together in Photoshop or something like that, because it doesn't always capture everything together at once. So you got to kind of use it as a tool. It's not a catch-all, right? It's not going to do everything. You got to do a little of your own work. So, but the background, but make the background more clear and less distortion and deformities. And we'll see what it does. I don't know if it's going to fix it. I may have to say like highly detailed, or I'll say what is it? Hyper realistic. We'll see if that does anything. And you got to play around with these, and if you really get into this stuff, you want to write down or copy and paste some of the results and your prompts, and take a look at that. You can also vary between styles and colors and shapes and that sort of thing. One nice thing about DALL-E 3 is it is making the attempt to not allow people to quote artists, or so if I say make this like Gary Gygax, it doesn't let you do that if you word it that way. What it will say is I'll make something like it Gary Gygax, or I'll make something like such and such artist, but I cannot use the actual the artist. So it does kind of try to get around or get away from that deformities. So deformities. Okay, we'll see what happens. Quit yapping for a sec. So I'm going to actually download this just in case, and I'm going to use this later for content. So this will be my next step. I'm going to make the NPC for it. So that's my next step. Yeah, it kind of did it, but yeah, so it didn't change the orientation, which is something that irritates me, but maybe I didn't say that. Yeah, I didn't. I did not say it. So it went off the original post, not the altered one. So that was on me. But nonetheless, it kind of fixed it in the background, but it wasn't enough for all that. So it kind of did what it was supposed to, and I wasn't paying attention to the prompt and what I was doing. So technically, I should have given it this image probably and had it analyze it and then go from there. But nah, whatever. So this just gives you an idea. So what I can do now is I can upload this image into my content creator. So if I go to this, I'm going to go to a different GPT this time. So this is my NPC stat block generator. So I'm going to upload the photo that I just made, and I'm going to have it analyze it and give me a description. So I just download the image into my downloads folder, I believe. And now I'm going to upload it to itself. And I'm going to say, please create a detailed and we'll say detailed and summarized story of the necromancer from ID underscore okay. So it's taken the image, it's going to analyze it, and the only reason I put this gen ID thing in here because I want it to carry over into my next conversation, so I have it there as a tool and as a way that I can kind of keep track of it. So now it's making an NPC background is essentially what I'm doing here. And I'm only doing this because I might need this text later when I'm creating this particular character. So I'm going to actually tell it to use the D&D 5e stat block format so I can copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds. But what's neat is I have this background. I didn't have to do that. I could have just said, give me a brief description. But what I want to do is use this context, and then I'm going to make a D&D 5e NPC stat block for Fantasy Grounds to actually update it. And I did give it custom instructions on what the formatting should look like, but for some reason, with stat blocks and formatting and text, it just does not want to listen. I have to I force it to say, hey, look, this is what I told you to do, now do it. And sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. So it's giving me this kind of this summarized story here, saying that she's in the forsaken crypts of the shadowed hollows, where whispers of the dead are common as the living's breath. So I would not have preferred to do this in the NPC thing. I have another cheap Chat GPT that would be more for creating stories and character dialogue and adventures. But this is gonna they called it a Dark Weaver. How cool is that? The Dark Weaver. So I'm gonna call that. That's what I'm gonna call this NPC, is a Dark Weaver. Don't have a name for it, but we can ask her to. In battle, she is a specter of death, her hands casting spells that wither the strong and embolden the dead. Her necromancer's might is absolute, commanding the bones of the past. So it's kind of doing its thing here. So this is kind of making more. I could have just said, hey, make the NPC stat block, But now that I've played with this more, it still wants to do its own thing. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So once it's done yammering here, I'm going to say, please create. Why do I say please? I don't know. It's just a common thing. Please create a D&D 5e NPC stat block to be of a female, a human female. I don't know if she was, I'll say half elf female. Oops, see, it gave me this network error. So this is what happens when it starts running out of memory and you got 50,000 people. I'm not too worried about that because I don't care that it didn't finish, but you can hit regenerate. Sometimes it'll go back and fix it. Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. But essentially, I want it to, I'm going to have it make the NPC stat block. So please create a D&D 5e NPC stat block for the Dark Weaver female necromancer. And I don't know what CR level should we have. It can't be like 1 or something. It's probably got to be a little higher level than that. Maybe I'll go with the CR3. That way it has a little bit more bite to it. Let's see, necromancer. And then I'll say that she carries a dagger and throwing knives or throwing darts. So she's got some throwing darts. You don't see it in the picture, but she's got a dagger and some throwing darts, no staff. And then I'll say she is a CR3 NPC. Please create for parsing into the Fantasy Grounds platform using my data. That's important to put that in there because then sometimes they'll just use whatever. You know, it's not perfect. And I'm going to copy and paste this in case it crashes again because I don't want to lose my prompt here. So I kind of wish it would just shut up for a minute. Yeah, just shut up for a minute. I'll say it was a little, about the same. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit this and see what it does with the stat block. This is what this was generated for. I didn't want it to make that huge story, but I did tell it to make a summary and a story based on the image. So we gotta watch what you're asking for. I notice it's very slow, and that's because it's peak hour. You got everyone and their mom using it. So far, the formatting is right, and what I'm looking for is how this stuff is arranged. It even included the mage armor, which is cool, so that assumes that she's going to use mage armor. So far, this is right. Now, this is where it kind of goofs up, and this time it got it right. So it's using strength, dex, con. Yep. So you want all the stats on one line, and you want all the numbers and the adjustments on the second line. It's giving the saving throws, the skills. She knows Arcana, History, and Deception, and Stealth. Really cool. No vulnerabilities, no resistances. I would have thought that maybe she might have a resistance to necrotic. You know, you could do that. You can say, okay, can you add resistance to necrotic? You know, you could do stuff like that, but then it has to rewrite the whole thing. So it's kind of up to you, like what you want it to do. But it's languages, Necreel. I don't know what that is, but it's made that up. And then Infernal. And so Necromancy Adept, so she adds her intelligence modifier to the damage she deals with any necromancy spell. So this is like a wizard, not a warlock. So she's a 6th level spellcaster. Her intelligence is blah blah blah. See, this is where it screws up, and I hate this, but it always wants to put this bullet points in there, and that's unnecessary. That actually throws the parsing off. So when you copy and paste this, everything looks right except for the spell list here. It doesn't need these bold or these indents or these bullet points. And I told it in my instructions, don't frickin' use those. And it does it no matter what, it'll do it. So I can go back and tell it not to do it, or I can just manually strip those out when I copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds. It's a very small problem, but it is very annoying to me. I mean, I specifically say don't use bullet points and hyphens and, and it does it anyways. So reactions, Dark Retaliation. When she's hit by a melee attack, she can use a reaction to cast a cantrip. Pretty cool. Dark Retaliation. And now it's giving the background. Really cool. So I'm going to fire up Fantasy Grounds. So if I was going to use this in a game, I can go into, and this would take me a lot less time because I wouldn't be explaining it and dilly-dallying around. I'd just be, using it. So I would go into the NPCs area under the campaign and go to NPCs. And I'm not going to be as organized as I normally am, but normally, you want to come in here and make your own group because that's important. So I'll just say Chat GPT NPCs. Okay. And that's going to be my starting point. And then I'm going to bring in the import text tool. So now I want to go back to the actual Chat GPT. Yeah, see, it just crapped out on me. So I'm going to get this stuff in here, and then I'm going to ask for those changes, because right now, as it is, it's not bad. So I'm going to take this, copy it, bring that over to Fantasy Grounds. I'm going to paste it in there. And I'm going to take a look. See, those bullet points are in here, which is what I like. And then I'm going to go ahead and right click and ask it to clean up the text, which all it does is it just gets rid of the extra spaces and such. And then I'm going to take this dark weaver thing and then put Control V over here. So maybe that. And then I'll put this as a formatted text. Something like that. And then we'll see what happened back here. It's crazy. So regenerate it. Yeah, it's having a lot of network issues because there's like 50 million gazillion people using this. So that's why it's doing that. So I don't know. It kind of sucks, but that's just the reality of it. And every one of their brothers using it. So that's probably the biggest problem there. And it's just a matter of, what you need this for and how you're going to use it and all that good stuff. But so here's the stat block. We'll see if it gives me the background. So I can make up that background. It's not that important. But now I'm worried about the performance. Sometimes you need to check the calculations on the bonuses in this case. So it might give you an armor class, but it may not give it to you properly because it's giving you this and it doesn't do the calculations ahead of time. So if you have a dex bonus of +3, it already gave you the armor class. So it doesn't circle back and fix that. So you need to kind of go back through it and kind of look at it before you call it good, because I've had it where it gives me the wrong bonuses and stuff because it's not calculating the sometimes it doesn't calculate the proficiency bonus or the armor class bonus if there is one. So you got to kind of watch that. But other than that, it seems to be pretty good. Okay, so now it did. See, this is what I don't understand. Now it did make this different, and it made this correct. So I don't know why. It's so weird. So there's the traits, and there's the innate spell casting. But it totally left out. That's weird. It's kind of a different character now. Oh well. So I'll just use this one if it's able to complete. Right now it's kind of looks like it's going to crash again because it gets really slow. It starts crawling and then there it goes. Now it's speeding up. It's probably not having to do as much thinking here. Kind of making the stuff up as it goes. Wow, it really is cooking here now. So this is just a way that you can use Fantasy Grounds. So if you're just joining now, I made the image earlier of this necromancer, and then it's kind of creating. So this is the picture that was made, and now I'm just kind of building an NPC based on that image, and it is basically okay. See, that was better. Remember to adjust the AC spell. Oh yeah, if you have any mana. So it did kind of know that. And it looks right. So I'll just copy and paste this new stat block. I'm not married to the other one yet. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Fantasy Grounds and take all this and delete that and go with this. And then I want to take and right click and go to clean up text. It'll do that automatically when you import it, but I like to see what the text is going to look like one last time before I approve it, because I'll find mistakes and stuff and I can fix it here before I hit the import button. And then all this stuff doesn't belong on this side, so I want to control copy that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the text, and then I'm going to bold this information, which doesn't go in the stat block. It goes on the second, the other tab. And I don't know if the other rule sets have this particular tool. They do have the table importer, which is another tool that I put in the Chat GPT. So, okay, so this is all the the stat block information. It looks right, like as far as how it's set up. The traits are there, the cantrips, innate spell casting. Okay, so she has darkness and silence as a bonus, kind of bonus spells. Her dagger and her throwing darts. Okay, so let's see what happens. So an import, and it looks right. So there's your spell casting, there's this, there's the dagger, there's that. Now here's the back of the sheet here. The nice summary. Now you won't get this summary unless you use the import tool. So if you do it by hand, or if you have an older book, you're not going to get this nice summary. So if you want this summary on the back other tab, you got to use that import tool. So I'm going to go ahead and lock it, and I'm going to put it on the combat tracker, and then take a look at the actual information for the attacks, the offense, and there you go. That's kind of what you want. You want all this stuff to parse. It's got the, the spell slots. It's got all this innate stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to see. Now that I have that artwork, I can put that artwork into, what's this token stamp thing, and make tokens for it, right? I have the artwork. I have a full image, and then I have the, I can make a token out of it. So it's kind of a quicker way to make content for your game, and it helps you get through the day without spending hours and hours on it. And I would have already been done with this if I wasn't doing the show, and I wasn't going through all the particulars and explaining everything. I think I could have probably been done in less than a half an hour, and that's with artwork and everything. That's impressive. So yeah, so this is her kind of her mug shot here. So we can use this as her kind of like her token. So I can download, or this will be her portrait, excuse me. So I'll download that, and then if I want to make a token, I put a frame around it, and then kind of reposition this. And then we'll change the border color to something more sinister looking. There we go. So I'll download that. So you have a token and a portrait, and then you pretty much got everything you need for Fantasy Grounds. So then you can assign the token here, import the image into Fantasy Grounds. So if you wanted to do that, you go to your assets, and let's see. So I don't have any images yet for this particular campaign, but if I click on folder, I can drag in that image and the other image, the one I just made. So I can go in there. Let's see if I can go. Let's go back to this, and let's go to the downloads. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Sort by date. What the heck is going on here? Okay, here we go. So this image is not the image. So this image would go into the back end for images. And then for portraits, I can go into this folder and go into my custom made portraits and drag in that in case I want to make a character. So if you were going to make a character, the portrait would work good in there. You don't need it for an NPC necessarily, but if you're going to use this as a character, you want to have a portrait for it. And now for tokens. So I'm going to go into the tokens area and go to folder, and it will have its own subfolder, and I'll drag that token in there. So it's really a time saver, I think, in most cases. Yeah, you're doing a little hopping around here and there, but it's not as bad as starting from scratch. Imagine spending hours and hours doing it on, some sort of art program, and then only kind of getting what you want. And then, going through all that, and you're going to do that for a home campaign for, a couple guys around the table? Probably not. I mean, that's a lot of time to put into it. So I think this works well with homebrew and, that sort of thing. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to refresh, and now we have a token that's in the campaign folder. So I'm going to actually bring the stat block back up, and I'm going to unlock it and then drag the token that I just made onto here and then lock it again. So that's how that looks. And then for the artwork, if I wanted to like show the artwork at some point, the full picture, I can import that into the campaign. So if I go to images and I go to campaign, oops, I don't know what the hell happened there. It did not like that for some reason. Let me go into the folder and find out what's going on. It could be because of the title. So let me change that. So Necromancer. Okay, let's try that again. So I'm going to hit refresh. There we go. Yeah, so the name or the title of this thing was way too big. I couldn't handle it. So create image record. So again, if you're going to do custom images, make your own folder. So I'm just going to call this Chat GPT art, just so I remember what it's for. Okay, and then click that, and then I'm going to add or send. You can make this a background image, or you can send it to the image record. So there's the image record. And now what I would do is probably just put, I'll just say evil, I don't know, half elf or something, and then change the ID so we don't give it away. Like if she had a name, you wouldn't reveal it until she gave her name. Half elf necromancer, or we'll just say spellcaster. They don't know what she is. Okay, so there's that. And now what you do is you can link this to the back of the NPC. So where it says Dark Weaver here, I'm going to hit space and enter, drag this image and place it right here on the back. And this will essentially be her image that you can share if you need to. Let's say you're having a boss fight or something, then you can pop this image up, and it will show up for the players if you share it with them. So there's that image. And you can do some cool stuff with this. So I might put some mist in here. So if you go to the effects tool down here and you set up an effects layer and then go to effects, you can drop this down and we can go to mist. And there's it. I want to turn the speed down. That's way too fast. So that's probably about right. So 52. Whoops. What the heck happened there? So I wanted to go 52. There we go. Okay. Yeah. And then turn it down a little bit. And now I'm going to put a mask on it so it doesn't go over the whole freaking thing. And I'm just going to kind of loosely, I guess I'll put it down here on the bottom half. And then I'm going to freehand by holding the shift key, or excuse me, the alt key. And I'm just going to kind of go around here like this, make this look a little bit more natural and not so. And then I'll take the blur tool, kind of blur it in, and that blending tool. You could do stuff like that. And then you could change how much. So I'll just turn that down a little bit. You do all kinds of cool stuff. So it's kind of up to you, how you want to do this. But when you share the image now, it'll kind of bring it to life. And you can even do something weird with her eyes. So you can put another layer on here and make it look like her eyes are moving. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. So anyways, that's kind of the use case in one case where you're going to use this to generate an image. You can use it to generate the stat block. You can do tables, whatever you want. It's really kind of up to how much time you can put into it and practice. And of course, this is a paid version, so I'm just going to mention that again. No, this is not an affiliate link or anything like that. I'm not getting paid to advertise for them. I'm just letting you know there's a tool out there that can make life a little quicker and easier for you. That's all I'm trying to do. Some of you don't like AI. Some of you don't trust it. I get it. I'm not judging anyone on that. I personally think it's kind of cool. So it's just kind of a cool way to speed things up and make life easier on you. So what's going on here? Why do I got 6 copies of that? Okay, so what happened is that I updated the version that's on the combat tracker, not the original. So if you're going to do this, you got to do it to the original. So there's the image. Now I need to grab that token. This is a common mistake that I make, and I know better. So assets, tokens, campaign, drag that over, replace that letter D there, and now re-put it back on. So when you make changes, you got to go back, and you don't want to make changes to the one that's in the combat tracker if it's permanent. Okay, so that's basically how that works. So that was just one prompt with the art and all that. So if I go back to Chat GPT, and if I remember right, it was trying to write me a nice little story here. So what I can do is take this, hit copy, and then I have a content creator, which is more set up around making stories. So what I'm going to do is design a detailed and organized, so I'll just say create an adventure outline for the D&D 5e rule set using my instructions and the SRD 5.1. So you can kind of use this as a inspiration to start building an adventure with. So it'll go through, it'll read all of my custom commands for stories. Let's see, it's giving me the introduction. In this format is what I asked it to do. There's the adventure hooks. There's the technical information. So there's your levels, the ideal party size, standard rules with optional use of necromancy themed spells and undead creatures from SRD 5.1. There's the adventure, the read aloud, the GM section, encounters. So you can get your outline pretty quick, and then you go in and you just use the other tools to populate this other stuff that you need. So there's a puzzle trap. There's an ethical dilemma, which is more of a story thing. And then there's some combat with the skeletal guards and Marrow, the skeleton guardian. So we can go back with this thing here and create that guy. So there's the epilogue. So let's go back to the NPC stat block generator. And I want to use the old one. There we go. So D&D 5e NPC stat block for he is armed with a great sword and wears old plate armor, something like that. That way you get a little bit of an idea of what he was before. We'll see if it turns out correctly. So I'm just kind of hopping back and forth between these tools. Before, I had to use separate conversations and I had to do the prompt over and over and over. When you make your own GPTs and you supply it with your own data, there's less of that going on. So you kind of has a starting point. That's what's nice about these things, is that it gives you that starting point. And that's what these GPTs are. Eventually, you're going to be able to sell these on a marketplace and share them with other people so that you can share them now, but you can't monetize them. But if you wanted to monetize this within, of course, there's probably some rules about that. Like, I don't think I could monetize this unless I got permission from Smiteworks and maybe even Wizards of the Coast. But that would be the use case, and then of course, you'd probably have to pay a percentage of your pay or whatever. But if you're going to use it for other tools, it'll be free. That may be something. But like for writing assistance and you know doing your programming and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's doing really good. So this is right. This is correct in regards to this. Let me look at the AC. So plate armor is 18. It doesn't have a dex bonus, so that's correct. It's a challenge rating 3, so it's pretty tough. There's the reactions. There's a parry. There's the appearance, roleplay, So the Marrow does not seek out conflict, but will engage aggressively with anyone who desecrates the crypt he guards. He uses his greatsword to deliver powerful blows and relies on his armor to shrug off most attacks. If outnumbered, Marrow will strategically retreat to choke points where he can fight off enemies one-on-one. So he might back himself into a corner just to avoid multiple attacks. He stands tall, gives you this. So I could take this appearance and then apply that into the image generator that we were using earlier. So you could do that. You can just keep doing this until you build up your own adventure. It won't take long, because if you get a methodology and a flow, you get all your NPCs made, you get all the artwork made, you get your story outline, and then maybe some tables and such, you can really crank some stuff out. And that was the whole idea, is like, I wanted to make some content, but I want to throw together a one shot. It's going to take me an afternoon, not a week, or it's going to take me maybe 4 hours to do something pretty decent with artwork. So that's not bad. So that cuts down the time by by like 65% easily. So that's all I have for today. I think I've went on for over an hour, and hopefully this helps you and inspires you to kind of figure out your own way of doing this. But like I said, you have to have the paid version. I'll have some links and tips and stuff in the chat. I did leave the prompt that I used for the NPC and Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, I left those in there. And then I might share these. If you want the link to these, I can give you the link. I don't mind sharing them with our community or people I know if they want to try this out. But like I said, you got to have the paid version. Otherwise, use the new Bing Copilot, which is being installed on multiple computers. So if that's something you want to try without paying for it or having to, go the extra mile like I've done here, you can generate images at least. I don't know how we'll do the stat blocks. You can probably get something close. But I mean, I gave it, the thing that annoys me though is it still wants to do its own thing. So it's not perfect. There's some things that could be better. But so let me go into the parameters. This is the stat block generator. So I even said here, this is the instructions. I said, use my knowledge first. Don't change the format or layout. Do not use HTML markup or any of that stuff. Code blocks, extraneous punctuation, the spell casting trait. Maybe that's why, because I didn't spell it right. But the spell casting traits and innate spell casting belong in the trait sections. Known spells, I should say spell lists. Maybe that's why it's not working. Do not need or use hyphens, bullet points, or dashes. So, I've given it all that stuff and it still does it. And then I even given an example of what exactly I'm looking for. So I don't know. Sometimes it just does its own thing. But I'm going to go ahead and update that. Maybe the next time I do this, it's not going to be as a bunch of a booger. I have to remind it a couple times to not include those bullet points. But as you can see, when I pasted it into the Fantasy Grounds tool, it didn't matter. So let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, I do have rollable tables. So why I call it a rollable list instead of a table is because if you say table, it's going to create a formatted table. and I don't want it to do that. I want it to make a rollable list. So what I'll do is I'll make just a basic trinkets list. So rollable. So I'm going to say create a rollable list with 8 results for a trinkets for random trinkets themed for a necromancer. So this will kind of tie into the lore that we had before and gives you a rollable table. So create, but it's actually a list. We don't want to say table. Don't say table. All right, so if you say rollable list, and I'm going to say use my example data instructions, because for some reason they always want to do their own thing. All right, let's see what happens here. So far, looks right. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. So it made the table. It's not a table yet, but it's a list that I can import into Fantasy Grounds. So there's a set of tarot cards, a book of morbid poetry written in blood. So this is the name of the table and then the results. That's all I want. I don't want all this other crap because it tries to give you more than you ask for or not the right format. So if I go into tables and then I use the import tool, I can say, okay, I want this delimited and it's going to be separated by a pipe. So I already set that up. I told Chat GPT that I want a pipe separator, which is this line. No commas, don't use the other stuff because sometimes commas will make another row or another column. I don't want that. So hit Control V, and then this stuff up here is the title. So I'll just say Necromancer's Trinkets. And then I need to fix this. This is not exactly what I wanted. But this should say roll with a pipe because I didn't ask it the right way. And then result. So this is the header. And then the rest of these are on separate lines with this pipe separator. So now column headers in first row, yes. Table ranges in first column, yes. So that this first column is this left-hand side here. So now when you hit import, it brings all that stuff in. It's like that. Unfortunately, the tough part of this is to make all these items. So if you're gonna do the trinkets list and you don't already have all this stuff made, you're kind of SOL. So you're gonna have tarot cards, a candle, a book, a ring, a handkerchief, a finger bone, a locket, and a preserved zombie flesh vial. So you're gonna have to make all that stuff. So be careful what you ask for. It can help you make the item stat block, but you still have to manually enter all those. That's a lot of work. NPCs and items are a ton of work in Fantasy Grounds. There's no import. You can do some copy and pasting, but you can't import it like this. So there's that. So you can do a lot of cool stuff rather quickly without breaking the bank. So if I say table, it's going to output, the formatted table with the lines and all that. I don't need that. So that's why I made it. I had to change it to list because the minute you say table, it's going to give you a table. So be careful with that. Don't ask for a fork because it's going to give you a spoon. Let's see. So there's this. So I have a content commander. I have the chat log parsing tool. I have Night City Guide, which is for Cyberpunk. I have the rollable list generator. I have a generic prompt artist. Pathfinder 2 content creator, 5e effects builder, fantasy art crafter, so it's a little bit more specific to fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and then the NPC stat block generator. So that is an arsenal of tools, and then I have this scribe, which I don't know if I need this anymore. Let's see. Yeah, this scribe thing is actually, I don't need that anymore, so delete that one. But you can manage your own. You can share these and stuff. So if you guys want to use one of these if you have the paid version of Chat GPT 4, I can share it with you. That way you can get an idea how to do it yourself if you want. But nonetheless, I think I'm going to go. I'm way over my time. So it's supposed to be about an hour, or about almost an hour and a half. So take care, everyone. Happy gaming. I guess it's Friday tomorrow, so that's a good thing.